The words cut deeper than any knife could. "Get out of my house, Adriel. You're dead to us now." It was his 30th birthday, and in one devastating moment the family's discovery of his relationship with Victor had turned celebration into exile. Adriel stood frozen on the porch of the two-story home in suburban Los Angeles where he had grown up, the cake still burning on the dining table inside, candles flickering like they were mocking him. His mother's face, twisted in disbelief, flashed behind the closing door. His father's voice still rang in his ears, heavy with the same disappointment that had shadowed every conversation about marriage, grandchildren, and carrying on the family name. He clutched the small, wrapped box Victor had slipped into his jacket pocket that morning, the one he hadn't had time to open before the argument exploded. Rain began to fall, soft at first, then harder, soaking through his shirt as he stumbled down the steps to his car. The engine roared to life, but he couldn't drive far. 3 blocks away, he pulled into an empty parking lot behind an old strip mall and let the tears come. 30 years old, a graphic designer with a decent job, and suddenly homeless in every way that mattered. Memories flooded him without permission. He remembered the first time he saw Victor 2 years earlier at a little coffee shop near the university campus. Victor had been grading papers, dark hair falling across his forehead, glasses perched on the bridge of his nose. Adriel had spilled his latte trying to reach for a napkin, and Victor had laughed, that warm, easy sound that somehow made the whole world feel lighter. They talked for hours that day, about books, about dreams, about the weight of expectations neither of them had ever quite escaped. Victor taught literature at a local high school. Adriel designed logos for tech startups. On paper they were ordinary. Together they felt extraordinary. But they had kept it quiet. Adriel's parents were traditional, church-going, the kind of people who still sent Christmas cards to distant cousins with Bible verses printed inside. Coming out had always felt like stepping off a cliff with no parachute. So they stole moments, weekend drives up the coast, late-night talks on Victor's balcony overlooking the city lights, whispered promises that someday things would be different. Now different had arrived, and it tasted like ash. Adriel pulled out his phone. 15 missed calls from his sister, none from his parents. A single text from Victor. "Hey, how's the party going? Can't wait to hear about it. Love you." The words blurred. He typed back with shaking fingers. "It's over. They know. I'm coming over." By the time he reached Victor's apartment in Silver Lake, the rain had turned the streets into mirrors. Victor opened the door before Adriel could knock, took one look at his soaked clothes and red eyes, and pulled him inside without a word. The small living room smelled like fresh coffee and the lavender candle Victor always lit when he knew Adriel was coming. They sat on the couch, Victor's arm around him, steady and warm. "I'm so sorry," Adriel whispered. "I never wanted to drag you into this mess." Victor kissed the top of his head. "You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose you. Every single day." He reached into his own pocket and pulled out a small envelope. "I was going to give you this later, but maybe now is the right time." Adriel stared at the plain white envelope, his name written in Victor's neat handwriting. The secret gift. He didn't open it yet. The weight of the day pressed too hard. Instead he leaned into Victor's chest and let the tears fall again. The first real safety he had felt since the door slammed shut behind him. Outside the rain kept falling, but inside, for the first time in hours, something fragile began to stir. Hope, maybe, or the beginning of understanding that love could be bigger than the family that had just thrown him away. The night stretched long. They talked until the candles burned low. Victor made grilled cheese sandwiches the way Adriel liked them, extra butter, and they ate in comfortable silence broken only by occasional sniffles. Adriel's phone buzzed again, his best friend Ethan this time. "Dude, what the hell happened? Your mom called me crying." "Call me." Adriel ignored it. Ethan had been his rock since college, the straight guy who never batted an eye when Adriel came out to him freshman year. But right now even Ethan felt like part of a world Adriel no longer belonged to. Victor didn't push. He simply held him, fingers tracing slow circles on Adriel's back, the same gentle rhythm that had calmed 1,000 smaller storms before. When Adriel finally drifted toward sleep on the couch, still in his damp clothes, Victor draped a blanket over him and whispered, "Tomorrow we figure it out. Together." But tomorrow brought no easy answers. Morning light filtered through the blinds, and Adriel woke to the smell of coffee. Victor was already dressed for work, tie loosened, looking at his phone with a furrowed brow. "My principal left a voicemail," he said quietly. "Something about a parent complaint. I have to go in early." Adriel's stomach dropped. The world outside was already tightening its grip. He opened the envelope only after Victor left. Inside was a single key and a note. "This is yours. No matter what. I love you more than yesterday." The key felt cool in his palm, small and ordinary, yet it carried the weight of every promise Victor had ever made. Adriel didn't know what door it unlocked yet, but for the first time since the rejection he felt something shift inside his chest. A tiny spark of curiosity that refused to die. He spent the morning cleaning Victor's apartment, trying to keep busy, trying not to think about the empty chair at his parents' table. Around noon Ethan showed up unannounced, eyes wide with worry. "Your sister told me everything." "Man, I'm so sorry." They sat on the balcony, beers in hand even though it was barely afternoon. Ethan listened without judgment, the same way he always had. But when Adriel mentioned the key, Ethan's expression changed. Just for a second, a flicker Adriel couldn't quite read. "Victor's a good guy," Ethan said finally. "But you gotta be careful. Families like yours, they don't let go easy." The words lingered long after Ethan left. Adriel turned the key over and over in his fingers, wondering what secret Victor had been keeping. The city hummed below, indifferent to broken hearts and birthday disasters. Somewhere in the distance a siren wailed. Adriel closed his eyes and whispered to the empty air, "What now?" The answer didn't come, but the key felt heavier, like it was holding an entire future he hadn't dared to imagine yet. By evening Victor returned looking exhausted, jacket slung over one shoulder, but his smile when he saw Adriel waiting with takeout Thai food was genuine. They ate on the floor like college kids, paper plates balanced on knees, laughing softly at old stories to keep the heavier ones at bay. Victor didn't mention the principal or the parent complaint, and Adriel didn't press. Instead, he held up the key. "You gonna tell me what this opens, or do I have to guess?" Victor's eyes sparkled with mischief for the first time in days. "Patience. This part of the birthday present. You'll see soon enough." He reached across the coffee table and laced their fingers together. "I've been planning this for months. Even before yesterday." The reference to the family rejection hung between them, but Victor squeezed his hand. "You're worth every bit of planning, Adriel." The next few days blurred into a strange new rhythm. Adriel crashed on Victor's couch officially now, his childhood bedroom already packed away by his mother in angry silence. He avoided his family's neighborhood, ignored the growing pile of voicemails from his sister, begging him to just talk to them. Work became a refuge. His boss, unaware of the personal storm, praised the latest logo revisions and gave him a small bonus. Felt like a tiny victory. Ethan texted daily, checking in, offering his spare room if things got too cramped at Victor's. But something in those texts felt off. On Thursday, Ethan suggested they meet for lunch at their usual taco truck near the university. Adriel went, hoping for normalcy. They sat on the curb, salsa dripping onto paper wrappers. "Listen," Ethan started, voice lower than usual. "Your mom called me again. She thinks I knew about you and Victor the whole time. She's asking me to convince you to come home. Say it was a phase or something." Adriel's appetite vanished. "And what did you tell her?" Ethan looked away. "I told her the truth, that it's not a phase. That you're happy." But she hung up on me. He paused, then added, "I'm on your side, man. Always. But maybe you should at least hear them out. For your own peace." The words landed like stones. Adriel wanted to believe Ethan's loyalty, but the suggestion stung. Was his best friend already pulling away, choosing the path of least resistance? He changed the subject, but the crack had formed. That night he told Victor about the conversation. Victor listened quietly, then said, "People get scared when the world they know starts shifting. Doesn't mean they stop caring. Doesn't mean we stop living." Still, doubt crept in. Adriel began noticing small things. Victor leaving the apartment earlier than usual, hushed phone calls in the other room, the way he changed the subject whenever Adriel asked about the key again. The misunderstanding grew like a shadow. Maybe Victor regretted getting involved with someone whose family drama could spill over into his own life. Maybe the secret gift was actually a gentle way to ease out of the relationship. Friday brought the first real test. Adriel's boss called him into the office. "We had a client pull out," she said, not unkindly. They saw some old social media posts, nothing explicit, but enough for them to question our family-friendly image. "I'm sorry, Adriel. We're letting you go." The words echoed the same rejection from his parents. He drove back to Victor's apartment in a daze, the key burning a hole in his pocket. Victor found him sitting on the floor surrounded by half-packed boxes, eyes red. Without a word he knelt beside him, pulled him close, and held on tight. "I'm not going anywhere," he whispered. "Whatever happens, we face it together." That night they lay awake talking about everything and nothing. Childhood dreams, favorite songs, the ridiculous price of rent in Los Angeles. Victor's voice was steady, but Adriel could feel the tension in his shoulders. Something was coming. The secret was getting harder to keep. Saturday morning Victor woke him early. "Get dressed. We're taking a drive." He refused to say more, just handed Adriel a travel mug of coffee and a jacket. They headed north on the 101, windows down, music low. The ocean glittered on their right as they left the city behind. Adriel's heart raced with equal parts fear and excitement. 2 hours later Victor pulled off onto a narrow road lined with eucalyptus trees. At the end stood a small cedar cabin overlooking the Pacific, weathered but beautiful, with a wide porch and wildflowers growing unchecked along the fence. Victor turned off the engine. "This is it," he said softly. "The key opens that door. I bought it 6 months ago. Used every penny I had saved, even cashed out a small inheritance from my grandmother. I was going to surprise you on your birthday with the deed in your name. A place where we could start fresh, away from the noise, somewhere you could finally design without worrying about clients or family opinions." He swallowed hard. "I never expected the surprise to come like this, but here we are." Adriel stared at the cabin, tears blurring the view. The secret gift wasn't just wood and glass. It was Victor's faith in him, poured into 4 walls and a future. He turned to Victor, voice breaking. "You sacrificed everything for me?" Victor smiled, eyes shining. "Not everything. I still have you." They stepped onto the porch together, the key sliding into the lock with a soft click. Inside smelled of pine and possibility. Sunlight streamed through the windows, painting the empty rooms gold. For the first time since the birthday disaster, Adriel felt the weight on his chest begin to lift. But even paradise had shadows. As they explored the rooms, Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his face tightened. "It's the school again. I have to take this." He stepped outside. Adriel watched through the window as Victor paced, voice rising then falling. When he came back inside, the spark in his eyes had dimmed. The parent complaint escalated. "They're calling an emergency board meeting. My contract might not be renewed." Adriel reached for him, but Victor pulled away gently. "I don't regret any of it. But I need you to understand, this affects both of us now." The words hung heavy. Outside the waves crashed against the cliffs, relentless and indifferent. Adriel held the deed Victor had just handed him, the paper still warm from his pocket. Love had given him a home, But the world outside was still trying to take everything else away. The real test, he realized, was only beginning. They spent the weekend at the cabin, cleaning, laughing, pretending the outside world couldn't reach them. Victor taught Adriel how to build a proper fire in the stone fireplace while Adriel sketched ideas for the empty walls. Bright abstracts that felt like freedom. At night, they sat on the porch wrapped in one blanket, watching stars appear one by one. "I never thought I'd have this," Adriel admitted. "A place that's truly ours." Victor kissed his temple. "You deserve it. We both do." Monday brought reality crashing back. Victor left early for the board meeting, kissing Adriel goodbye with forced cheer. "I'll call you after." Alone in the cabin, Adriel tried to work on his portfolio, but every brushstroke felt hollow. His phone kept lighting up. Missed calls from his sister, a long text from Ethan apologizing for pushing too hard at lunch. "I hate that this is tearing you apart. Let me know if you need anything." The words felt sincere, yet the earlier conversation still stung. Around noon, a knock startled him. He opened the door to find his sister Claire standing on the porch, eyes puffy, clutching a paper bag of what smelled like their mother's tamales. "I drove up here the second Mom told me where Victor's new place was. Please, Adriel, just talk to me." He let her in. They sat at the kitchen table that still smelled of fresh paint. Claire cried as she spoke. "Dad's not sleeping. Mom keeps setting a place for you at dinner. They're scared, not hateful. They just don't understand." Adriel listened, anger and love twisting inside him. "They threw me out on my birthday, Claire. Called me dead to them. How am I supposed to forget that?" She had no answer. Before she left, she hugged him tightly. "Victor seems like a good man. Just don't shut us out forever." The door closed behind her, and the cabin felt emptier than before. Victor returned that evening looking drained. The board had placed him on administrative leave pending investigation. "They're worried about influence on students," he said bitterly, loosening his tie. "As if loving you makes me dangerous." Adriel pulled him into his arms, holding on until the tension eased. That night they made love for the first time since the birthday. Not rushed or desperate, but slow and tender. Every touch a promise that they were still here, still choosing each other. The misunderstanding with Ethan exploded on Wednesday. Adriel's phone rang while he was painting the cabin's living room wall a soft sage green. Ethan's voice was tight. "Look, I need to come clean. Your mom kept calling. I told her about the cabin because I thought it would help them see you're okay. I didn't think they'd drive up here." Adriel's brush froze mid-stroke. "You told them where we are?" The betrayal hit like a slap. Ethan tried to explain. Pressure from his own conservative family, fear of losing his best friend. But the damage was done. Adriel hung up, chest tight. Victor found him sitting on the floor, paint on his hands, staring at nothing. "I trusted him," Adriel whispered. Victor sat beside him. "Trust can bend without breaking. Give it time." But the crack widened. Adriel spent the next day in silence, replaying every conversation, wondering who else knew, who else was judging. The cabin that had felt like salvation now echoed with doubt. Then the turning point arrived without warning. Friday morning, Victor received an official letter. The school board had decided not to renew his contract. He read it twice, then folded it carefully and set it on the kitchen counter. "It's official. I'm out." His voice was steady, but his hands trembled. Adriel watched the man he loved absorb the loss of the career he had built for 12 years. All because of a love that refused to stay hidden. Something inside Adriel snapped into focus. He couldn't let Victor carry this alone. He grabbed his laptop, opened his portfolio, and started emailing every contact he had. Former clients, design agencies, even the small gallery downtown that had once shown interest in his personal work. "We're not done," he told Victor. "Not even close." That afternoon they drove into the city together. Adriel marched into the gallery with prints of his newest pieces, the ones inspired by the cabin, by Victor's quiet strength, by the messy beauty of starting over. The owner, a kind woman named Maria, flipped through them slowly. "These are different," she said. "Raw. Honest. I want to show them next month." Adriel left the gallery floating, the first real win in weeks. Back at the cabin that evening, Victor pulled out another envelope, this one thicker. "The rest of the gift," he said. Inside were bank statements showing months of careful saving, a life insurance policy he had quietly transferred into Adriel's name, and a handwritten letter dated 6 months earlier. "If you're reading this, it means things got hard. But remember, your worth was never in their approval. It's in the way you love, the way you create, the way you keep going. I believe in you. Always." Adriel read the letter 3 times, tears falling freely. The secret wasn't just the cabin or the money. It was Victor's unwavering belief that Adriel could stand on his own. In that moment, every doubt, every fear of not being enough, began to crack. He looked at Victor across the table and saw not just a boyfriend but a partner who had risked everything without asking for anything in return. "I'm going to make you proud," he said. Victor smiled, the first real smile in days. "You already do." But the road ahead was still steep. Saturday brought an unexpected visitor. Adriel's father, standing on the porch in his Sunday suit, hat in hand. "Your mother made me come," he said gruffly. "She can't stop crying." The air thickened. Adriel invited him inside, heart hammering. Victor stayed in the kitchen, giving them space. The conversation was halting, painful, full of long silences. His father spoke of shame, of fear for Adriel's soul, of not knowing how to love a son who loved differently. Adriel listened, then spoke his truth, quietly, firmly. "I'm not asking you to understand everything today. I'm asking you to see that I'm still your son. And I'm happy." His father left without promising anything, but he shook Victor's hand before he drove away. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a door cracked open instead of slammed shut. That night, Adriel and Victor sat on the porch again, the ocean roaring below. "You faced him," Victor said. "That took courage." Adriel leaned against him. "I faced myself first. Thanks to you." The psychological weight began to lift, replaced by something stronger, clarity. Adriel started sketching a new series called Keys, each piece incorporating the small brass key Victor had given him. He worked late into the nights, fueled by coffee and purpose. Ethan texted an apology, genuine this time, and Adriel replied with an invitation to the gallery opening. The friendship bent but did not break. Yet the biggest storm was still gathering. Unbeknownst to them, Adriel's mother had been quietly researching, reading articles, watching videos late at night. She wasn't ready to speak, but the seeds of understanding were taking root in the most unlikely place, her own heart. The journey was far from over, but for the first time Adriel believed he had the strength to walk it. The gallery opening arrived faster than expected. Maria had worked miracles, hanging Adriel's Keys series under soft track lighting that made every brushstroke glow. Invitations went out to a carefully curated list, designers, teachers, even a few open-minded relatives. Victor helped him choose an outfit, a simple navy button-down that brought out the gold flecks in his eyes. "You look like the artist you are," he said, kissing him softly. Adriel's nerves jangled as they drove into the city. The cabin had become their sanctuary, but tonight felt like stepping back into the arena. Ethan arrived early, hugging Adriel tightly. "I'm sorry I messed up. Proud of you, man." The words mended something Adriel hadn't realized was still broken. Guests trickled in. Murmurs of appreciation filled the room. A local art blogger took photos, whispering that the series had emotional depth rarely seen in commercial artists. Then his parents walked through the door. His mother's hands trembled as she clutched her purse. His father stood tall but uncertain, eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on Adriel. The room seemed to quiet. Victor squeezed Adriel's hand once, then stepped back, giving him the stage. Adriel walked toward them, heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. "You came," he said simply. His mother's eyes filled. "We saw the invitation Claire forwarded. We had to see." She gestured to the largest painting. A massive key turning in a lock made of broken family photographs reassembled into something whole. "Is this how you see us?" Adriel nodded. "It's how I saw myself locked out, but also how I see the possibility of opening the door again." His father cleared his throat, voice rough. "We've been talking, praying, reading. It's not easy, son, but we're trying." The words weren't perfect. They carried years of conditioning, but they were honest. His mother reached out and touched his cheek the way she had when he was small. "We love you. We're scared, but we love you." Tears slipped down Adriel's face. He pulled both parents into a hug right there in the middle of the gallery, strangers watching, cameras flashing. Victor joined them, and for the first time the four of them stood together, not fully reconciled but no longer enemies. The moment stretched, fragile and beautiful. Later, alone on the gallery steps while Victor chatted with Maria inside, Adriel breathed in the cool night air. Ethan sat beside him. "You did it. You faced everything." Adriel smiled. "Not everything, but enough to keep going." The next weeks brought more changes. Victor found a new teaching position at a progressive private school that welcomed him openly. Adriel's series sold out the first weekend, leading to commissions that paid the cabin mortgage for the next year. They planted a small garden behind the house. Tomatoes, basil, sunflowers that Victor insisted would grow tall enough to see from the porch. Life settled into a rhythm of quiet joy punctuated by hard conversations with family. His mother started calling every Sunday, asking careful questions about Victor, about their life. His father still struggled with pronouns and public affection, but he sent a new set of tools for the cabin with a note that simply said, "For your home." Yet one final shadow lingered. During a weekend visit to the city, Adriel ran into an old colleague from his former job, the one who had quietly outed him to the conservative client. The man smirked in the coffee shop line. "Heard you're living the dream now. Must be nice having a sugar daddy buy you a house." The words were meant to wound. Instead they glanced off Adriel like rain on a windshield. He looked the man in the eye and said calmly, "Actually, my partner sacrificed everything so I could stand on my own. That's not sugar, that's love." He walked away without waiting for a reply, head high. That night he told Victor the story over dinner on the porch. Victor laughed softly. "You've changed." The old Adriel would have spiraled for days. Adriel reached across the table. "The old Adriel didn't know his worth. You showed me." The psychological growth was tangible. Adriel no longer flinched when strangers glanced at them holding hands in public. He posted his first photo of the two of them on social media, arms around each other on the cabin porch, sunset behind them. The caption read simply, "Home." The likes and comments poured in, some supportive, some hateful. He read them all and felt nothing but peace. The noise no longer defined him. Family dinners resumed, tentative at first. His sister brought her new boyfriend. His mother cooked Adriel's favorite enchiladas and set a place for Victor without being asked. Conversation stayed surface level, weather, sports, the garden, but underneath ran a current of healing. One evening his father pulled Adriel aside on the back patio. "I'm not there yet," he admitted, "but I see how happy you are. That's starting to matter more than my old ideas." It was the closest thing to acceptance Adriel had ever heard from him. He hugged his father tightly, both men blinking back tears. Victor watched from the doorway, smiling. Later, back at the cabin, he took Adriel's hands. "I have one more part of the gift." He led him to the small office they had built together. On the desk sat a framed certificate, Adriel's name on a new business license for Keys Studio. a freelance design company Victor had secretly registered months earlier using the proceeds from the first gallery sales. "You don't have to work for anyone who doesn't respect you ever again," Victor said. "This is yours. Completely." Adriel stared at the document, throat tight. The secret gift that had started as a single key had grown into an entire life rebuilt on love, sacrifice, and unwavering belief. He pulled Victor into a fierce embrace. "I don't know how to thank you," Victor whispered against his hair. "Live it. That's all I've ever wanted." The months that followed were the happiest Adriel had ever known. The studio flourished. Victor's new students adored him. They hosted their first friends and family weekend at the cabin, Ethan, Claire, even Adriel's parents for one careful night. Laughter echoed off the cliffs. At sunset, they all stood on the porch watching the sky turn pink and gold. Adriel looked around at the people who had walked through fire with him and felt something he had never truly believed possible: wholeness. Yet life, he was learning, was never completely tidy. His mother still prayed extra hard on Sundays. His father still avoided certain topics. Ethan occasionally slipped into old protective patterns. But every imperfection reminded Adriel that growth wasn't a destination. It was the daily choice to keep choosing love over fear. One quiet evening, Victor found Adriel on the porch sketching again. "What are you working on?" Adriel turned the page so Victor could see. A portrait of the two of them, the cabin in the background, a single key hanging from a chain around Adriel's neck. "Us," he said simply. "The whole story." Victor kissed him, slow and deep, the kind of kiss that promised forever without needing words. The journey that began with a slammed door on his birthday had led him here. To a love that refused to break, a family learning to bend, and a man who finally knew his own worth. The ocean whispered below, steady and eternal, as if agreeing that some gifts, once given, could never be taken back. Winter arrived gently at the cabin, wrapping the cliffs in soft fog and turning the garden into a sleeping palette of browns and greens. Adriel and Victor spent quiet evenings by the fire, reading aloud from the books Victor loved. Poetry mostly, lines that felt written just for them. The gallery had asked for a second show, this one titled Open Doors, and Adriel worked late into the nights, paint under his fingernails, heart full. His relationship with his parents continued its slow, uneven dance. His mother started sending care packages, homemade cookies, a new set of sheets for the guest room, as if Victor were merely a roommate. Adriel smiled at the careful wording but accepted every box with gratitude. His father called once a week now, gruff questions about the business, awkward silences that somehow felt warmer than before. "That painting you did," he said one Thursday. "The big key one. Your mother hung it in the living room. Neighbors asked about it." Adriel laughed. "And what did you tell them?" A long pause. "I said it was my son's work, that it meant something important." The words landed softly, like the first snow. Ethan became a regular visitor, bringing his new girlfriend and helping Victor build bookshelves for the growing collection. The misunderstanding from months ago had faded into a story they laughed about now. "Remember when I almost ruined everything?" Ethan would say, shaking his head. Friendship, Adriel realized, wasn't perfect. It was showing up anyway. One crisp Saturday, Victor suggested a hike up the coastal trail behind the cabin. They packed water and sandwiches, the key on its new chain bouncing against Adriel's chest with every step. At the summit, they sat on a weathered log overlooking the endless Pacific. Victor pulled a small velvet box from his backpack. Adriel's breath caught. "It's not what you think," Victor said quickly, smiling. "Not yet, anyway." "Open it." Inside lay two simple silver bands, plain but beautifully crafted. "Promise rings," Victor explained. "I know we're not rushing anything, but I want you to know I'm in this for the long haul. Through every family dinner, every gallery show, every hard conversation. You're my home, Adriel." Tears pricked Adriel's eyes as he slipped one ring onto Victor's finger. then let Victor do the same for him. The metal felt cool and solid, a quiet vow under the open sky. They kissed there on the ridge, wind whipping around them, hearts beating in perfect sync. The high didn't last long. Monday brought news that shattered the peace. Victor's old school, the one that had let him go, sent a formal letter demanding repayment of a professional development grant they claimed he had misused by promoting an alternative lifestyle. The amount was small, but the accusation stung. Victor stared at the paper, jaw tight. They're never going to stop. Adriel refused to let fear win. He called Maria at the gallery, who connected him with a lawyer friend specializing in discrimination cases. Within a week, they had a response drafted, polite, factual, ironclad. The school backed down quietly, but the process drained them both. Nights became restless. Victor woke from nightmares about losing everything again. Adriel held him through the dark hours, whispering the same words Victor had once given him. You are enough. We are enough. The psychological toll showed in small ways. Adriel found himself sketching darker pieces. Locked doors, storm clouds, until Victor gently suggested he paint what he wanted to feel instead of what he feared. The exercise became therapy. Slowly, the canvases brightened. One painting in particular emerged. Two figures on a cliff at sunrise, keys around their necks, hands linked. He titled it After the Storm. His mother surprised them both by showing up unannounced one afternoon with a casserole and an apology. I read a book, she said, sitting at their kitchen table, about families like ours. It hurt, but it helped. I'm sorry I hurt you first. She hugged Victor awkwardly but sincerely. You make my son happy. That's starting to be enough for me. The moment was imperfect, messy with years of baggage, but real. Adriel watched his mother leave and felt another layer of weight lift. Christmas approached. They hosted a small gathering at the cabin, parents, sister, Ethan, and his girlfriend, Maria from the gallery. The tree glittered with lights Adriel had strung himself. His father carved the turkey, grumbling good-naturedly when Victor offered to help. Laughter filled the rooms. At midnight, they stepped onto the porch for fresh air. Snow, rare in Southern California, had begun to fall in soft flurries. Adriel leaned against Victor, their rings catching the porch light. His father joined them, hands in pockets. This place suits you, he said quietly. Both of you. It was the closest he had ever come to full acceptance. Adriel swallowed hard. Thanks, Dad. No more words were needed. The snow kept falling, blanketing the world in white, covering old wounds with something new. New Year's Eve they stayed home, just the two of them. They built a fire, opened a bottle of wine Victor had been saving, and danced slowly to old songs on the radio. At midnight Victor pulled him close. Best year of my life, he whispered. Even with the hard parts. Adriel kissed him deeply. Because we faced them together. The new year brought fresh momentum. Adriel's studio landed its first corporate client, a tech company that loved his story and wanted inclusive branding. Victor's new school offered him a department head position. They celebrated with a weekend in San Francisco, walking hand in hand across the Golden Gate, no longer hiding. The city lights reflected in the bay like scattered stars. Yet one final test waited. Adriel received a letter from a distant cousin on his father's side, a conservative pastor who had heard the family gossip. The letter was long, full of scripture and concern, urging him to repent and return to the right path. Adriel read it twice, then showed it to Victor. Instead of anger, he felt only sadness, for the cousin trapped in fear, for the years he himself had spent there. He wrote back a single page. I respect your beliefs, but my path is love, and it has led me to the best version of myself. I hope one day you can see that. He mailed it without regret. The act of answering with grace instead of rage marked another milestone. Victor read the reply and pulled him into his arms. That's my man. Spring brought wildflowers to the cliffs. poppies and lupin painting the hills orange and purple. Adriel finished the Open Doors series and held a second opening. This time his entire family attended. His mother cried at the portrait of the two rings on the cliff. His father bought the piece on the spot, hanging it in their living room beside the first key painting. Our story too, he said simply. Life wasn't perfect. Disagreements still happened, Victor's habit of leaving dishes in the sink, Adriel's tendency to work too late. Family visits could still feel tense. But every challenge now carried the knowledge that they had already survived worse. The secret gift that started everything had multiplied into 1,000 small gifts. Trust rebuilt, courage found, love made visible. One warm evening Adriel stood on the porch watching Victor tend the garden, sunlight catching the silver band on his finger. He realized the journey wasn't about escaping pain but learning to carry it differently. The man who had been disowned on his birthday now stood taller, loved deeper, and created freely. And the person who made it possible was right there, humming an old song, soil on his hands, heart completely open. Adriel smiled into the golden light. Whatever came next, he was ready. Summer heat wrapped the cabin like a blanket. Adriel and Victor spent long days at the beach below the cliffs, bodies bronzed, laughter easy. The studio thrived. Commissions rolled in from across the country. Victor's students sent him postcards from their summer travels, thanking him for teaching them not just literature but courage. Life felt full in the best possible way. One lazy afternoon Adriel received a package in the mail. Plain brown paper, no return address. Inside was a small leather journal and a note in his mother's handwriting. I started writing too. Thoughts, prayers, questions. Maybe one day we can read them together. Love, Mom. He opened the journal to the first page. She had copied a Bible verse about love never failing, then added in her careful script, I'm still learning what that really means. Thank you for being patient with me. Adriel closed the book, tears falling freely. The last wall had crumbled, not with fanfare, but with quiet persistence. He showed Victor that evening over grilled salmon on the porch. Victor read the note silently, then pulled Adriel into his lap. She's trying. That's everything. They sat watching the sunset paint the ocean rose and gold, the journal resting between them like a bridge finally completed. The following weekend they hosted a bigger gathering, family, friends, even a few new colleagues. The cabin buzzed with conversation and music. Adriel's father manned the grill, trading stories with Ethan about fishing trips. His mother helped Victor arrange flowers on the table, their heads bent close in quiet talk. Claire pulled Adriel aside at one point. You did this, she whispered. You showed them it was possible. He hugged her tightly. We all did. As the sun dipped low, Victor clinked a glass for attention. The group quieted. A year ago I gave Adriel a key, he said, voice steady but thick with emotion. Today I want to give him something else. He reached into his pocket and produced a small box, the same velvet one from the cliff. This time when he opened it, 2 matching bands gleamed under the string lights. Adriel, will you marry me? The porch erupted in cheers before Adriel could answer. He laughed through tears, pulling Victor close. Yes, 1,000 times yes. They slipped the new rings on, simple platinum now, engraved inside with the date of that first coffee shop meeting. The family surrounded them, hugs and congratulations flowing freely. Even Adriel's father wiped his eyes, clapping Victor on the back with genuine warmth. Welcome to the family, son. The words landed like healing balm. Later, when guests had gone and the stars filled the sky, Adriel and Victor stood alone on the porch once more. The ocean whispered its eternal song. Adriel turned the new ring on his finger, feeling the weight of every choice, every tear, every act of courage that had led them here. I never thought a birthday disaster could end like this, he said softly. Victor rested his forehead against Adriel's. The best stories never do. They danced slowly to no music, just the rhythm of waves and heartbeats. The journey that began with rejection had become a testament to resilience, to the power of love that refused to hide, and to the quiet strength found in facing truth. Adriel had discovered not only his worth but the courage to claim it every single day. Victor had shown him that real gifts weren't things. They were presence, sacrifice, and unwavering belief. As the night deepened, Adriel looked at the man in his arms, the one who had risked career, family, and future without hesitation, and knew the story wasn't ending. It was only beginning. True or false? A single act of love can truly heal the deepest wounds of rejection and guide a person to lasting self-acceptance?